This year, we were researching Indian Village. We didn't really have a lot of information or history. And so this is our first attempt at gathering the history together. You can see these boards up here. We've set them up with what we've got so far. And so you certainly can add to it. And we will have another program on May 19th, which will be on a Sunday at 2 o'clock. And we'll have more people maybe up here, maybe 3 or 4 people up here telling their story, as well as whoever comes to tell the story, so that we can get some more history on Indian Village. One of the things I want to tell you is I didn't find a family whose father was a veteran that moved in to Phillips Village at the on the GI Bill, you know, that right after World War II. So I'm interested in finding maybe a family that had a father that was a veteran, okay? And one of the things we did was Martha Teal and Elizabeth Rolog decided to be our first presenters and tell their stories about growing up in Indian Village. And so we gathered the information from them, and Martha had started the Facebook page in, what was it, 2019 or earlier?
It was probably earlier.
Yeah.
It's been out there for a while. It was a private group, and then Facebook restructured things, and it became public, and I don't know how to really take control again, but
Yeah,
I can delete the garbage that comes in.
I know. But the interesting thing for me was all the nostalgia and the wonderful comments from everybody who lived there in Phillips Village, and the children growing up at the time. Indian Village, sorry about that.
That's okay. Phillips Village is a different place.
No, I know. Anyway, so that a lot of good memories, and so we tried to put some of those up in quotes up there of people who on the Facebook page wrote this, and there were some good ones. So if you ever have a chance, this is what you do. If you go to Facebook, then you go search. You go Indian Village Webster, and up will come Martha Teal's whole group, and you can join, and then you can see all the comments and the pictures and stuff. They're really nice. So one of the things we want to do was start with a little history. So Carol has been wonderful to work along with me. So Carol put together a lot of this information for us, and so she's going to do a short spiel on national homes and all that for you. Okay? And then wait, I just have to recognize Millie and Gary Ippolito were our researchers for national home information, and they got us all that information. And then they went to the village hall and got us more information, and I forgot.
Karen Buck.
Karen Buck was the person who helped them there. So, okay, I covered all that. And thank you for my helpers today, Mary Fran and Dawn. Came in early to help, and Carol. Okay, Carol, you're on.
Okay. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes just to give a little bit of the history before we read your story through. That's why we're all here. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, which we know is a GI Bill, which led to this boom in home ownership after the war. So what it was is the veterans received loan guarantees from the government that the government would pay back either 50% of the loan or $2,000 if the recipient failed to pay, which gave a safety net to the people who were selling these homes. So that created the housing boom, the GI's return, the housing boom. This leads us to National Homes, located in Lafayette, Indiana. They were known as the General Motors of home builders. They did the prefab homes, sent them out. They're manufactured there. There's also a place in Horseheads that manufactured those, and there's another Indian Village actually in Canandaigua that we found. So we're not sure who built the homes that are here, but the walls, the floors were all mass produced. You'll notice, we want to draw your attention to this right under National there. That is a plaque that hung in the laundry rooms of the building on how to care for the home. And we are fortunate to have an original out here at the museum, but it's very interesting, brought to you by
And I'll
National.
pass it around for you.
So they were in business, I just have my statistic here. They could produce 750 homes per month. And they kept up and they went out of business in the early 1990s, 1991. So we've got the GI Bill, which led to the national homes, and more specifically Webster. The land of Indian Village was owned by the Schultz family, went to the shoemakers,
My grandparents.
Okay.
and then it was sold to John Shoemaker,
Yes.
who then sold it to Wilmerite. And that is where this development comes in. So all these articles that we have under the Webster Herald, those all were published in 1951. So there is a welcome mat laid out for Indian Village. I'll just use this one quote that I found in one of them, which says, of course, I can't find it, probably the greatest influx of new residents to hit Webster since 1840.
Oh.
So the welcome mat was out. We were able to find an actual ad for a home. And again, you'll note that the $800 down, but for GIs it was $450 down. So that was called the Shoemaker Development, the Wilmerite Development, the Wilmerite Track. And just also that they announced the first baby born in the Wilmerite. They called it the Wilmerite Territory. But in August 1951, Julianne was born on Pontiac Street. And she was the first baby born to your neighborhood. So that's, so we'd love for you to take another little look if you would like to see the articles that we have there. And these, of course, are the memories of the people who lived in the neighborhood. So if that just sets the stage of where we are, why Indian Village came to be, and I would like to turn it over to hear the stories of growing up in Indian Village.
My parents bought our house on Mohawk Street in the summer of 1958 for $7,500. They moved in with my oldest brother Dan, who they were in the process of adopting him. They had him since the September before. My brother Tim was born while we lived there. He had severe autism. He was a little bit of a wild child and could sometimes run the neighborhood. My mom would have to go out and find him. I was born in 1964, and the Webster water towers were right out our front window. They were my friends all growing up. It's weird when it's sad to lose a water tower. But that was my entire, they had been there my entire life. There's a picture over there with my sister and I eating fudgesicles. I am the one with the belly. The water tanks. That's our front yard, so. Yeah, myself and my two sisters. My mother at one point in time, my brothers were not living in the house when my mother had 4 foster children. So we had 7 kids living in the house. My father built an upstairs bedroom in the attic, accessed by a fold-down stairway. There was a dormer egress.
Is it still there?
It is still there. I moved back in with my daughter's family in 2017, and we replaced the dormer window so that as a screen that pops out, I could step out onto the roof if I wanted to. But I wanted to replace the paneling that was 60 years old and would burn like paper, and it's still not finished. So that was started a little over a year ago. I'm not sure if I'll ever be back up there, but it's probably safer to be downstairs.
Yeah.
So my sisters and I grew up on Mohawk Street back in the time when everybody played outside. It's been amazing to hear the stories of Mark Peacock, who was a baby when his parents built their house in 1951. Kids who grew up with my brother, who was 6.5 years older than me. It's amazing to see them exchange stories on the Facebook page. But, yeah, we played in the street, Foursquare, hide and seek, jump rope, everything. And one of our favorite places to go was the woods. There were no hunters in the woods. It was too small and it was a park, so that was a fabulous place to play.
My family moved in, we bought the house in June of 1969, so I was about 13 months old. When we moved into the house on the corner of Mohawk and Iroquois, so 8 Mohawk. We had a corner lot.
Could you speak a little
Oh,
louder?
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, so we had a corner lot on 8 Mohawk Street. My parents moved in June of 1969. I was about 13 months old, and then my brother was born in December of 1970. And this was my parents' first house, so, and I think they paid about $17,000 for it at that time. There were a number of other established, we lived kind of kitty corner from the Peacock House.
Peacock's house is the red house, guys.
Yep,
Yes.
See the red house there?
yep.
It was
that's
the
their
only
house.
red house on the street, okay?
So, yep, until the Reynolds down the street, the other direction, they had theirs red as well.
Okay.
And there's actually multiple different styles of houses. I think there's 6 or 7 different styles. Like her house has a peak, a higher peak of their attic. Our attic we can't stand in, so it couldn't be converted into a bedroom. So some of them have more of a dormer in the front. Some of them have a flat front. There's different styles. Some of them have a little room off the back. Some of them don't. We don't have that. We are one of the only houses, actually, which faces, all the corner houses are diagonal on the corner. So they face literally the corner. They're kind of, except for our house, which driveway is on one street, front of the house is on the other. So it's like I've looked, I'm like, is there any other house in this neighborhood that is like this? No, there is not. A lot of the families around our corner lived there for years. So the Van Houtens lived next to the Peacocks. The Peacocks had 5 kids in their house. The Van Houtens had 5 kids in their house, 3 bedrooms. So the biggest bedroom, which is not big, had 4 boys
Oh, wow.
in it. Bunk
Bunk
bed. Mary had the littlest room, and then Mom and Dad had the middle-sized room. So a lot of the other houses around us had 2 kids, and we all were there from little through high school. So most of us, the Forkins had lived next door, they were there, they moved out when Marty and I were about 8. But the Plants still are 22 Mohawk, they've lived there for years. Chuck Plant still lives in his house at 22 Mohawk, and his son Ted has bought the house next door, which was the miner's house. So Ted,
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
And we lived next to the miner.
And you, okay, yeah.
Birdie Mohawk.
Got it, okay, yeah. So Ted lives there still. The Russos lived on the other side. So there was a family, the Russos, they lived on the
They are
other
still
side.
there.
They're still there.
They are still there.
Yep,
Pam and John, young John.
yep. Oh yeah, I see John quite often. So they're still on that house. They lived on the other side of the Yangos. Certainly the kitty parades were big things. I mean, we've got pictures of costumes that 4 families together, the Forkins, the Plants, us, and the Gammons, and we've got Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Right there, all the kids, and Raggedy and Nandy, and the birthday parties in the backyard were really big. The Wilmerite Park Playground, which is down the street from us, there was a big playground there. And that's where we would have, there was a rec center, and so they had summer camp, summer day camp down there. And so we would all go down there for summer day camp. There also was the tennis courts down there, and behind the playground was just cornfields. That was cornfields back there, because it was all the farm that was still back there. So we get deer in the neighborhood on our street.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
do you remember on Facebook page that Billy Wilson, right, lives on Sherwood?
Right.
His father grew up with the Wilmots, he said.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And his grandfather was a superintendent of that project of Indian Village.
I saw that.
But he said his father donated the playground, the land for the playground,
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, to the village.
He donated the land for Chase Park so that they could not make
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They could not connect the two neighborhoods, because the Wilsons had 10 kids. And I remember my parents talking about it when I was a little girl, that they wanted to make sure that there was not access from Sherwood to State Road, because all that traffic would go through
Right.
where all the kids were playing.
So Wilson had 10 kids?
Wilson's had 10 kids.
In a house like,
There's,
If they were on Sherwood, their house would be
They're-
big.
they're on Sherwood, but there are national homes on that
Okay.
end of the street.
well, his
Not-
had a
not Wood
plaque
Street.
in it.
His, I think it was a big national home,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
if
Figured.
you, I would
For
like
10
to
kids.
know, yeah, what they did.
Mhm.
Because most of them are just the little boxes. There's
Yeah.
one on Sherwood that's set totally different, so the narrow side is toward the street,
Mm,
and then there's an
Okay.
addition between the garage, like,
Yeah,
yeah, so that one's set different.
yeah, our house is only 1,000 square feet. It is a concrete slab
Let me get,
and a box sitting on top of it, you know? And there are a few homes down at the end of Pontiac Seneca that have
this
basements.
is Elizabeth's home right here, this one.
Mhm.
And when you get up and walk around, we put little things on them so you can locate them on the map too.
Yep.
Okay? And this is the Peacock's house, and this is where Martha was.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So the
this
one on the top, it has a basement.
Yeah, this has a bank
You
space.
can tell if they have a basement because you
You
have
see
the concrete
egress
steps
windows.
go up
Yeah.
into the house. What my mother told me was that they had to use dynamite to do the basements, and then they decided not to do basements anymore. So your basement houses are your oldest houses, and they added to the living rooms a couple
My
feet
son
to
was
the
down
living
in the
rooms.
basement here. He had to, it flooded, so they were doing whatever, around the edge of the basement.
And
It
that
was
one has
bad,
never
it
been
was so-
added onto.
Right.
That one's never been added
No.
onto, not an extra room and not a garage.
No,
Yeah.
you're right.
A lot of the houses in the neighborhood do have additions. Ours were not able to because like I said, because the house, the front door faces one side of one street, our garage is on the other street, so our house is almost kind of a U shape because they extended a breezeway. We had a breezeway, and so we're kind of stuck. We went off the way, lots of people go off the back of the house, we would end up blocking in a whole section of our corner. So it's, it's just one of those things. But yeah, we don't have basement, attic is not able to stand up in, very limited space in our attic as well. So,
Do you know what year yours was built?
54, I think.
Okay. Another thing my mother said was the older houses have the higher peak. And there was something about saving costs on building materials.
Sure.
And they, must have been a National Homes thing.
Yeah.
And they brought the peaks down.
Right.
So, yeah. Ours has about this much space above the top of my head in the middle. So,
Yeah, so ours, I'm not tall. I'm like this.
right,
So I'm not 6 feet tall, like and bended over, like it's really short
right.
in our attic. Yeah, so.
So Martha, where did you go to school? Where did you start school?
Our entire neighborhood, Mrs. Yango could testify, went to the Spry Building. Apparently, the school budget did not pass that year, and I don't know how long it was. We walked to school the first few days. But my kindergarten class includes all the kindergartners in Indian Village.
Cool.
So that picture.
Did you guys ever go to Ridgecrest?
I went to Ridgecrest, well, I went from kindergarten to State Road. I went 3 years at State Road, and then they redrew the lines, and I went to Ridgecrest for 3 years. And then Spry for 3 years, and Schrader for 3 years, so, yeah. I was divided up evenly, but, yeah.
Was the neighborhood basically with you?
Oh, yeah,
So in other words, they shipped all of you together?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I did Ridgecrest, well, my mother was a kindergarten teacher at Spry.
And she
Um,
was 9.
Was she? So, she was one of the kindergartner teachers, yep. But then I was Ridgecrest because I'm a couple of years behind Martha, so in the class with her youngest sister.
Yeah.
we did Ridgecrest kindergarten through 5th grade, and then Ridgecrest closed. And the entire neighborhood got sent to Schlegel, yep.
Right.
That's right.
And then went back up to Spry, because that was 7 to 9 at that point. We had 2 junior highs, 2 high schools, one of those years. So we did Spry for 7, 8, 9, and walked, because you had to walk up the state road to get the bus. You might as well walk the same amount of distance to halfway to school. And then I did 10th grade at Schrader, because again, still 2 junior highs, 2 high schools, and then they merged for my junior year. So we all went to the Thomas Building for 11 and 12. So
That's why I ran.
bounced around quite a bit, but you know, so. Yeah. And we used to ride our bikes. I mean, our later years at Ridgecrest, when we were a little bit older, because we would ride our bikes down the street, the little path to Wood Street, down Wood to Sherwood, and Ridgecrest was right there.
It's a road.
So it was always nice weather when we
Nice day to
could
go
ride our
out.
bikes to school.
Nice time.
You should do that. And then there's all kind of something to clean the walls.
Any
I,
other
Water
questions?
looks clean.
I remember Martha saying that it was nice to just walk outside and there was always friends to play with.
Yeah. It's very different now. You go outside and there aren't any kids anywhere, but yeah, the neighborhood was full of kids.
Oh, yeah.
Ride your bike around the block and there were always kids. I rode my tricycle down the street when I was 5 and met Kelly Yango, so
Really?
we hung out that year
You
until.
knew Tracy Jordan then?
I remember Tracy being in the
lived there.
yard, but Tracy lived in Beth's house
Right.
and moved out before we went to kindergarten.
Oh,
So I never,
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
She and Kelly were real good
she's
friends.
not in our kindergarten picture.
Mm.
She might have been there in the building.
She's on the
but-
Facebook page though, I think.
I've seen her on the
Yeah.
Facebook page. I remember her in high school, but
Yeah. Hmm.
maybe I was too shy that day that I saw her in the yard. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the picture that Martha posted of the kitchen. If you look at the kitchen, and it's the left side of that board, see the kids reading the cereal boxes?
Right.
That's the small kitchen they had.
Yeah. The daily.
Our house actually was renovated, because the kitchens were these galley kitchens. And so our house was renovated before we moved in. We don't have a utility room anymore. They took out the utility room, so our washer dryer in the middle of our kitchen. Not convenient at all. And they moved the 3rd bedroom, the smallest bedroom, into what was the kitchen in the front of the house. So closed off the doorway there to the living room, and took that 1 bedroom and made that and converted that with the kitchen, so made a bigger space. So our refrigerator is in an old closet, bedroom closet, just kind of how they rejigged and then got rid of the utility room to make the kitchen bigger. But our kitchen, you literally you have to walk through it to get, to the bathroom and the living room in the front, and it's an S shape. You have to go like this and like this, so it's literally, you're kind of jigging your way through to get
Jigging
there.
And what year did you move into your house? You said
69,
And it had been built in 1954.
54.
So
Yeah.
that time was the.
And that time was that, they had also expanded the breezeway or put in a breezeway and, a room, so we have this extra kind of dining room that attaches the garage to the end of the house there.
See, my dad put a back porch on the house, and that later became enclosed and it's a living room. So, they also built the garage.
Do you want to put past some of your pictures around maybe?
Yeah, my mom wrote on the back of them. I think they had gone to school with my brother one time, my autistic brother. So it's,
Yeah.
these are just, I didn't know what we were gonna do, so
Yeah.
those are just neighborhood pictures.
Yeah. So, we've had a lot of, my mother used to be able to sit, because the Forkins next door to us, Beth was the same age as my younger brother, Mark, and Marty and I were a month apart. And then the Plants next door to them, Ted was a year younger than me and Chrissy was a year older. So, all the kids were kind of all in the same ages. And my mom used to say we could tell where the kids were playing, because they didn't necessarily know. You could tell by the squeak of the
Swing
the swing set. You can tell because all of our swing sets had a different squeak, so you could figure out where the kids were playing. You know, so.
Usually the kids were playing at our house on our end of the street, but.
Exactly. Yep. And then the Austins lived next door to us, and they were in the house, gosh, I think
They were there a long time.
they were there a long time because they only sold the house about 5 years ago when she passed away. Because her husband had already passed away, so it was Pat and Mike Austin. They were older than us, probably about 5 and 8 years older than me. But, you know, when my mom went to the hospital to have my brother, I was next door at the Austin house. And she was, you know, babysitting me while my mom was at the hospital. So having my brother. And I still run into Mike sometimes out in the community. So, but they lived there for a really long time as well.
So Martha, when you sat down at the table in the kitchen, right,
Mm-hmm.
as a family for dinner, was it crowded?
I don't have I have a few memories of sitting down at the table, but I was very little.
Oh, yeah.
By the time my sister Priscilla was born, my dad was well into making the room in the back, turning the
Oh,
back porch into a,
yeah, so it gave you more space.
they called it the country room. He put barn boards on the walls that are still there. And we had our dining room back there, so, yeah.
That's nice.
I would go up the street to the Friel's house, they lived at 43 Mohawk, and their kitchen seemed very small,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I just like,
Most people added something on to be able to
I know, sit
spread out
together.
at dinner time
Yeah.
especially, I think.
I have one memory of my grandmother's, Jean Poffler, and next door, I think it was a corner house.
They were between corner houses, so they were between the Unis and the Durants.
Okay, so do you remember this rabbit hutch? It was like a massive, like all these.
At your grandmother's house?
No, next door, I think it was next door, maybe a house.
Oh,
or
maybe the
something.
Durants might have had rabbits, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they had this really exotic hutch, like the rabbits could go out up, you know, these little levels.
We'll have to ask Rick about it,
Okay,
because he still lives there.
that's one memory.
Yeah. You know, sometimes it takes somebody else saying something and you're like, oh, that sounds really familiar. Kind of like having your science teacher get everybody together for eclipse that you forgot you talked about years ago. But yeah, yeah.
Okay, good, I'm not.
The Crafts also had rabbit hutches against their garage, but they were
Did you
on the end of Wood
in the kitty
Street, so
parade?
that was different. I think I do remember rabbits being,
Okay.
That's the
I just
date
not
for the
remember
car.
that, but maybe it's. I'll have to ask you.
I know that,
They still have it today. Yeah. Elizabeth, you didn't
Buckingham
bring any
also
pictures?
had a
I
rabbit
mean, I've
hutch in
got
their
something I can
backyard.
pull out
with-
for you if you wanna.
We're
We
wondering
go over and
about
see
the
their
kitty
butts.
parade.
Okay.
Oh, I've got pictures of kitty
Good.
parades. Yeah. I'm not gonna find out. And we had rabbits behind our garage as well. So, yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's right. What kind of pets did you have?
we had a dog and
Did
then,
you?
Dogs
yeah,
and cats.
dogs, we had dogs and then at one point apparently we had puppies. I think I was probably about 4, and we had puppies at our house. And then, some birthday party. Birthday parties were really big with like all the neighborhood kids. Pictures of me on the Webster Museum floats in the 70s. With Mary Grace Thomas and, yep, so, yeah, we've got, yeah, there's some birthday party pictures. With all the, we've got Shane Peacock in some of these pictures, which is Mark's youngest
Yes,
brother.
yes, he was born the same.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay, yeah,
No, just,
They had the same.
you can yell
yeah.
or stand up.
Um,
I'll say, Dawn has a question. Go ahead, Dawn.
About how many houses were built in Indian Village?
We both look at the,
Oh, wait, looking at the map, I can count. I mean, I
Okay.
don't think there's nothing that's come and nothing that's gone. Like, there
There's
was one house
burned
burned,
down,
right.
and that was replaced
and they rebuilt it.
within the
I was gonna say
last
70s, yeah, 70s.
Yeah.
8 years.
Most of those were two bedrooms, weren't they?
Three,
Three?
yep,
Okay.
Our house that burned
Yep.
down.
3 bedrooms.
There are some that, 43
Oh,
was where the Millers lived there initially and had, their 8th baby was born when they lived up the street.
Oh, wow.
Later, they had 2 houses
Tell the
on
old
Salt Road.
Mm,
Okay.
and more kids.
But yes, yes. I don't think they lived there anymore when Honora was born, but I don't know. The addition on the back of their house seemed more like a National Homes, it matched the front, kind of. So I don't know if that was put on after the house was built or.
We saw, I think we saw these, yeah. These go to the front, they go
The
back
house we
to,
lived in, the garage had been made into a family room.
Right,
So we didn't have a garage, but we had a nice big family room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's common.
But then that, I think that's the house that burned,
I know, I was gonna say that.
yours?
our house, yeah.
It had burned previous.
Yeah.
And
Before we
also-
moved in, it was burned, and then I thought it burned again. But maybe
I don't,
because it's been totally,
I don't remember
Right.
I
that.
know that the Russo's house had a fire at one point in
Did
time,
it? Okay.
because the Forwards lived there when my brother was little. And there had been a fire there, but only one was a complete loss.
mm,
And that was where the Gilmartins had lived.
Right. And they rebuilt.
My daughter called me one night and said, please pray, the house across the street is on fire and it's catching the next one on fire,
oh,
so.
oh, scary.
And then I moved back with her in 2017, so
That's
it was
Marty
probably.
Corkin and I.
Was Larry Lewison's house.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And thankfully he got out. Yeah.
And all the cabinets, of course, the kitchen, you know, were all metal cabinets. You know, and the floor might get like the red and the, you know, countertops, and that's what we had until my parents renovated our kitchen in the 90s. So I grew up with the metal cabinets and those kinds of things, that's what I was used to. And then actually I bought a house in Pittsburgh and that had been built in the 1917. And we had the metal cabinets in there. I was like, oh, I'm familiar with metal cabinets. And the red countertops because that's where we'd grown up. So, but, yeah,
cute, cute, cute.
so. There's a few pictures of us as kiddos. And in June of 1973, and there's probably something in papers that you guys can look for, there was a twister that hit our neighborhood.
I've got pictures of that.
There was a what?
A twister.
A little twister that
Yeah.
came through.
Yeah.
Tornado.
Little tornado, little microburst that came through our neighborhood.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we had,
Took over trees.
oh yeah, we had our
Found a
front
couple of
window
buildings on the
that
Fireman's
faces
Field.
west, our living room window faces west. And my mom was home with my brother and I think it was either the Forkin kids or the Plotzker, or the Plant kids, you know, the next houses down. They were over because the window was closed shut and the water was pouring in the window. And we were all running and grabbing towels and whatever we could to try to mop up the water that was coming in. We had a tree that was on the front and it was leaning on the roof of our house that was pulled down, and they had to get a tow truck to try to pull it back up, and then it was rigged with wires forever, like to try to hold this tree from falling on the house. It's since been taken down.
Do you remember looking out the window beforehand and it
Oh,
got
green.
really quiet?
Yeah, I thought
It
this
was
was a
like
fire.
greenish
Green,
yellow.
yep.
There were 2 storms.
Kids.
There was the microburst one, and then there was one the next year where the sky just turned black.
Yeah.
And that one dropped hail that just
Yeah.
chewed up all the
Oh,
gardens and
yeah.
everything.
I think,
Damaged cars and.
I think part of a building from the Fireman's Field ended up at State Road School.
Oh,
Yeah.
There was
For
one
some
at
reason, I remember
Fireman's
that.
Field that, it was the hot dog stand is now. The old hot dog stand went to the backyard of the next house.
Yeah.
It went up and over the hedgerow into the backyard, just took the whole building.
The Friels shed went over to the next door neighbor's
Yeah.
yard too.
And what year is
One of our
this?
trees in the
back
backyard
in the
was struck by
73.
lightning,
Yeah.
and it fell, half the tree, part of the tree fell on my brand new swing set that I had just gotten for my 5th birthday from my grandparents. You remember that, the swing set came the end of May and beginning of June, and it's crushed by a tree. So, we had that, we've got I've got pictures actually of us, the neighbors out walking around, and our little back patio, we have a little back patio, and it was this little roof back there, and that was down the street. We were going and finding pieces, those kinds of things. We had wires down across the car that we had in our driveway. Yeah, it was quite a significant storm.
I was coming up to the fire hall and a limb came down on Kircher Park.
How many
Before the
here
hill and smashed
lived
the
in Indian Village?
Truck cap on my truck.
Could you just raise your hand so I know?
What did you say?
Well,
How many lived
people
here
lived
lived
in
in Indian Village?
Okay. And, no, you guys didn't.
I was a neighbor.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, a long time ago, I used to ride my bicycle down the state road, onto the road, and see the houses being built.
Oh, yeah. See, my father said he remembered when it was a farmer's field.
Well, I don't remember that.
That's what he used to say. I don't know who the farmer was, but he was born in 32, so.
That's nice. Nice memories.
Father born in
Good history.
32, youngster. My father graduated in 33.
Yes.
I want any of you who want to take a look at this, what they've been talking about, because these homes, all the homes here that we have collected, those are the ones that we heard from people, and we got a picture of the house and everything. So if anyone else knows of someone that would like to get in touch with us, either Lynn or myself. Lynn is the village and town historian, and she's here on Mondays. So anything, any type of history and stuff, we would like to hear and get a hold of, so that we
This
can
is Lynn.
put it in our document.
This is Lynn.
Were they built in this area?
Thank you.
Or were they shipped in, or?
I imagine they were.
They were shipped in, I think
Shipped in,
either from Indiana, although there was some sort of site in Horseheads, so. they were also
Yeah, we're
shipped in
thinking that, at least it sounds like, they built them, prefab.
Yeah,
And then they
prefab, yeah.
shipped them to Horseheads where they, I don't know, did something, put them together or something. Then put them in over here.
Yeah.
And it said that it took 2 to 3 days
Oh, yeah.
to put them together.
Yeah.
But it took longer for the electricity and the
Sure.
plumbing.
Yeah.
So my parents bought their house in 1958. My grandpa came over and knocked on the wall and declared it made of cardboard. But down in the front bedroom, if we were kids, when we banged on the wall, that window had a certain rattle to it that was, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still, our house is still particle board. So, and they never sealed the seams, so they just slapped up pieces of particle board and never even, with drywall, never
It was-
taped it, never sealed it, nothing,
It was made to move with the weather.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you
Oh,
read
really?
the National Homes things, it
Yeah.
was,
Signs
It-
for
it's-
7
it was made to expand and contract.
Wasn't part of
Yeah.
it.
So,
Like a home,
yeah, we
so-
still have, and it's very thin between the walls, a contractor friend of mine came over and he was like, huh. 1x8s, it's super thin. Yeah.
of a 2x6.
Exactly, yeah, it's just very thin, because it would have taken up more space. There wasn't a whole lot of space to work with to start with. Some of these houses, if they don't have the extra room and stuff, it's still 900 square feet, 800 some square feet.
The biggest problem with them became the Orangeburg piping. And almost everybody has had their plumbing dug up and the pipes replaced in the front yards. But I guess it has a lifespan of about 40 years and the
We've,
houses are well beyond that, so.
we've bypassed that and haven't had to replace it yet, so
We did the road thing where they went underneath.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully it lasts.
Let's face it, they wouldn't meet building codes today.
Naomi Silver. And we definitely had, it was interesting because there were certain houses on our corner, you know, because we're right at a T. The house across the street from us on Mohawk, right on that corner, changed hands multiple times. Multiple times. 16 next to us, after the Forkins, we had multiple families.
The last ones after the fourth.
Fruitonville's, yeah, after the Forkins, and then there was another family, and then the current family, I mean, there's been multiple families. But then you have got like the Austins, and the Rologs, and the Plants, and I mean, like, there were certain houses, they just didn't turn over, you know? But there were certain ones, it just seemed like there was always, you know, a different family, you know.
I think the
4 or 5 years.
Filinoviches who live right across from our end of Mohawk
Yeah.
on Seneca Street, they've been there since 71 or 72.
Yeah.
I think they were the second owners also. My parents were the second owners.
Yeah, we were the second
Um,
owners. I think they were the, yeah.
But the people, my parents bought their house from Margaret and Elmer Brasser, who bought a different house in the neighborhood and then bought a third house in the neighborhood. So some people went from, I don't know if it was, I don't know what the deal was with buying another.
Maybe somebody put an addition on.
The
A
Clarks
bigger-
also moved from house to
Right.
house.
Yeah,
And Nelson was up there until this year.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rick
You know,
Duran.
from reading the plaque that was displayed in somebody's laundry room and probably in other houses too, you know, one of the instructions was that you had to paint the house every 2 to 3 years. And I know that many of the houses probably were upgraded through the years,
Right.
so they weren't the original
They were the shingles.
house.
It was shingles.
Do you
They
know
put
if
shingles
you,
on.
like, you remember if your parents
I
were?
remember painting shingles.
See the paint guy with the paintbrush there? That's my dad.
Yeah, we had to paint, we were painting shingles, you know,
Yeah.
these wooden shingles all the time.
But I
Yeah.
think originally it was a different kind of siding, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just wondered if families adhered to the cautions that were listed to keep your house.
Mostly my brothers.
Yeah, my dad had no recollection of having that plaque in the
Yes.
house
I
when
don't
they bought it
remember
in
that.
'69.
Okay.
But again, our utility room had been done away with. We didn't have a utility room either anymore. So, but I do remember being out there and painting I've got pictures of us out there painting the shingles,
You can just paint.
you know, those little wooden shingles.
Yeah,
And then
we'll
they
pass
put
these
siding on, I think it was probably, I was maybe high school-ish. They put siding on finally, so.
Please remember, our museum is open Saturday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 2 to 4:30. And it's always free. All of our programs are free. So we'd love to have you guys just wander in. We're close, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Elizabeth's father, Bob Rolog, used to volunteer here. That's the other thing we do, is we welcome volunteers, and you can be a greeter once a month, and just sit in here for a couple hours and greet people as they walk through. You know the history yourselves probably, but we do have training that goes along with it. So if you've got any time, we'd love to have you.
And actually, my mother was very involved with volunteering way back when it started, when it was in the town hall. Because
Oh,
we
yeah.
would spend Sunday afternoons when it was open, and I grew up wandering around the museum. Because
Cool.
I would
See, I
go
didn't
with
even know
Mom.
there was a museum there.
Yeah, because I've got pictures of us on the float.
Oh, that's
The
nice.
museum floats. So when we were
So
little
you're
kids,
historical
because.
to the museum.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because Mary Grace Thomas would recruit us, because my mother and her were good friends, and we got recruited to.
Yeah,
part of the
and her
museum.
mother, I knew her mother in PTA. She
Yeah.
was in cultural arts,
Yeah.
yeah, with us. So, a volunteer family.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to thank you guys for coming today. It really has been special. Looks like somebody else is.
That's very good.
Thank you.
can't leave these go to waste.
Here, guys, I got you Webster Museum cup. Yeah, right.
Okay.
And we want to give you a bouquet of our flowers.
Oh, baby.
Get a flower.
Yeah.